What's good, people? I'm a Scudo, and I need to work on video editing. I have kind of a lot of balls in the air. I'm writing a book, as you know, article. Try to write 1,000 words a week on the book. The articles, I've never done a word count on them, but they're probably in that neighborhood. 1,000 words, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on the article. But I just since you're all patrons, I just want to engage with you a little bit more than a fucking 140 character limit comment on Imgur or Twitter. Uh, I feel like y'all deserve it. So I guess let's talk about how I came to fighting, how I found this sport, and just sort of my background a little bit. I remember I was a kid. I was probably 7, 8. I think it was 8. My grandfather was a degenerate fight fan. Loved him until eventually he kind of got disgusted with the sport. I believe the one that made him stop watching boxing for a while was the draw between Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield. He was pissed. Paid $50 for it. Stayed up all night for a goddamn draw. He was pissed. But I remember as a kid, I wasn't really allowed to watch it, and I spent all like my summers were always spent at my grandparents' house because my mom was a visiting nurse. My dad worked 2 jobs. I grew up in a middle class family, and I stayed with my grandparents because my mom and dad, one of them, generally wasn't there for a good 12 hours a day. Um, so I remember, uh, he had a neighbor, Bill, and Bill died not too long ago. But the dude was like 95, was in like Korea. How long are you really gonna live? I mean, it's hard to feel bad for someone who died like that because it's like, dude, you lived, you know, you had a house in the suburbs. You made it. You made it, and you enjoyed it, and now you're 95, and you get it's time to go. But they would sit on like this little swing they had, like a wooden structure, and fucking rock back and forth. And I was like a hyperactive 7-year-old, so like I'd sit with them and I'd listen to them talk shit and just fucking hyperactively swinging back and forth. Uh, but I remember them talking about Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. Uh, my grandfather hated Tyson, particularly the 1996 version. But even he'll admit he's like between he said to me between 1986 and the time you were born. I was born April 29th, 1989. Tyson was one of the best heavyweights he's ever seen. Ali is the only person who he really put on par with Tyson, and I feel like that's my cats are fighting in the corner. Stop being an asshole, Callie. Fucking fucking asshole. Anyway, so they were talking about it. My grandfather was shit talking. He's like, Tyson's a jerk. I don't know. He always said jerk. He always called people jerks, probably because there was 2 Marines talking, but there's like a fucking 8-year-old here, so you can't swear in front of them. Fat what a good that did for my vocabulary. Anyway, uh, and Bill was like, I don't know. I think Holyfield's got it now. And like they were talking about it, getting real animated, real passionate about it. And I remember I asked him to stay up to watch that fight. And the first fight I ever watched was Mike Tyson bite a motherfucker's ear off. And I saw this as an 8-year-old and was immediately hooked. Was just like I thought this happened every fucking week. You know, Mike Tyson eating a guy like live on television. I thought that happened all the time. It's good now that it did, but as an 8-year-old, that shit is fascinating. And so my grandfather figured it's like, all right, well, it really can't get worse than that. Like you just saw one of the most insane things that has ever happened in the sport, you know. So we'll just I can watch boxing now, and so I'd stay up uh, past my bedtime, which is probably like 9 o'clock or whatever. And I'd watch boxing after dark. I remember watching Roy Jones and Bernard Hopkins with him. not their fight in, but them actually. Did I see the second one? I'm not sure if I saw the second one, but their careers where Roy Jones is just fucking real life Spider Man. Bernard Hopkins is just this cagey, impossible to hit guy who talks shit the whole time. I as an 8-year old, like yeah, I'm into it. It's fantastic. And then I got older. I was probably about pretty much the time when I could stay by myself. By the time I was maybe 13, 14, my parents would let me stay alone, and we didn't have HBO, so we didn't have Showtime, so I didn't watch boxing because I couldn't. So I kind of fell out of love with it. Um, I played every sport. I played fucking baseball and football, and I never played hockey, and that's probably good because I'm real, like awkward on skates. Like I've been on ice 3 times in my life, and one of them I got a concussion from nothing. Uh, I just fucking tripped and like hit my face on a tree stump, and yeah, I wasn't meant for the ice. I played basketball because I'm 6'4", and I fouled out of most of the games I played. I was just kind of a psycho from a real young age. Um, so yeah, I fouled out of like a third of the games I was ever involved with as like a 12-year-old playing basketball who's 6 inches taller than everyone else. Um, and so I fell out of love, and then I remember I was sophomore or junior in high school, and I had the flu, so I was like staying home, and I leaned over on the couch to throw up, and I rolled onto the remote control, and my dad had been watching a Red Sox game on Nesson the day before, and then for some reason, I'm watching two guys in very tiny gloves about to get into a wrestling match. I think I really didn't understand what was supposed to happen here because I knew boxing. It's like I don't think that's what those gloves were, but and fucking it was a real lanky Hispanic looking kid, and then this little Japanese guy. I know who they are now. I'll tell you then. But I just recounting as it is a fucking sophomore in high school. Um, I remember first off, shit. Um, I remember this Hispanic looking guy, and he looked like the kid from detention. He looked like the motherfucker you would see in detention. He just didn't give a fuck, right? And then he was fighting this dude who looked like an anime character. He looked like fucking blonde haired Krillin, right? Like he looked like he should have had some dots in the middle of his fucking forehead. But so the bell rings and a timer comes on. I'm like, wrestling doesn't have timers and shit. Like, what's happening? And this Japanese guy just fucking blasts this fucking mean mugging like Hispanic looking dude, and just nails him, catches him, and like the Hispanic dude goes down. Right, he fucking grabs onto a Kimura. I didn't know what the fuck that was at the time, but he grabs like this around the guy's arm, and this dude just fucking picks him up and slams him like a gorilla. And I'm just like, what in the fuck is happening right now? And so like the Japanese dude, right after he slams the guy, gets on top, just beating his fucking head in, and the detention motherfucker is just like squirming around, it just like getting out of the way of punches and stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck? There's something going on here I'm clearly not understanding, and I want to know more. And then, but like, and if that was it, that would have been enough for me to pursue it. It was like I need to know what the fuck that is because I just like weird shit, and it seemed like some pretty weird shit. And so the fucking the detention motherfucker gets up and just starts talking shit. Just blood's gushing down his fucking face. He's all cut up and shit, and he's just talking. You can see he's talking shit to this dude. He's like, on the camera, and I just remember thinking like, I'm just gonna assume that guy doesn't speak English, the Krillin looking anime motherfucker, and I found out later he doesn't. So we have like detention kid is now screaming at like the foreign exchange student who like just got to this country and doesn't know how to speak English. And they're in a fight and it's fucking crazy and like the anime dude keeps throwing these fucking like falcon punches. They would later be called fucking Hadoukens by the principal. And so he just the fucking detention looking motherfucker just starts coming forward and just going to his body, hitting him real hard to the body. And I remember from watching box, I remember watching who the fuck did Roy Jones take out the right hand to the body? Was it Montel Griffin? Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I think it was Montel Griffin. Just and the motherfucker went down like he got shot. and this Hispanic kid is landed just hooks, just like Marco Antonio Barrera back in the fucking digging into his body, and you can see the Japanese guy who's just been throwing as hard as he can is just getting tired, and that's the end of round one, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on right now? And I'm just transfixed on it because there's something I'm missing. That I don't like missing things. Important things anyway, like life-changing, revolutionary shit that I'm seeing for the first time. What is this? I need to know more. And so round two starts. The Japanese guy's still out of gas. Fucking detention kid is all over him, just breaking him down, picking him apart. And then the Japanese guy like tried to tackle him, and they got like stuck together somehow. And then the ref ended the fight. And I had never been more confused and just stuck on it. Like I knew immediately. Like I'm a broke 15-year-old, but when I get some money and I can find somebody to support me doing whatever that was, I want to be a part of it because it looked fucking awesome. And so I found out later that the fight that I watched was generally considered one of the best Pride fights of all time. It was Nick Diaz versus Takanori Gomi, and I was just stuck. Like I knew at some point in the future that's going to be something I want to get into and something I want to be a part of and something I want to learn. And I it took me about 9 years to learn that it was a go-go plata. I didn't know what that was until I was probably 24 or 25. Uh, but I didn't go into fighting meat. Like I said, I'm a fucking broke 15-year-old, and I started working in a restaurant. Still working in a restaurant. I don't say what you want about it. I fucking love it. I love the persistent chaos and the madness, the heat and the stress. You get to watch people crack on a daily basis. You're not gonna do that in a fucking office, right? You cannot. There are things you can do in a kitchen that just shit would not fly anywhere else, and that's why I love it. Because as long as you could bang out on Saturday night, I don't care. No one cares. It's fine. As long as you can bang out on Saturday night. As long as you get your fucking shit done. But, yeah, so I started working in the kitchen, met some friends who were, like, into punk rock, started going to shows. And I ended up, because one of my friends was half black and a shit talker, ended up getting in a lot of confrontations with, like, racist skinheads, which were, I mean, I'm sure they still are. I haven't been to a show in a long, long time. Too long. Hmm, gotta correct that when I get some cash, but I'm kind of fucking strapped at the moment. Anyway, um, I started getting into a lot of confrontations with racist skinheads. I started street fighting a lot. Generally, it'd be like small gang fights, basically, or like You talk shit to my you call my half black friend the N word in a not friendly way, and so now I gotta. So somebody's gotta go home bleeding, right? You can't do that shit. And so I'd get into fights with racist skinheads, and I actually got slashed. Luckily, very, very slight, but I did take a knife to the inside of my arm. I wish my fucking camera was better. It's a 15-year-old scar, and it's not that big. But I didn't know it at the time. All I knew was I was in a fight, and I was lucky enough to actually counter the guy as he came in. Like I kind of caught him with a right hook. I knew just from watching boxing, watching fight, my fucking hand should probably be up. I caught him with a right as with a right hook as he was coming in, but he just the inside of my arm. And you never know you've been stabbed, or I didn't know that I had been stabbed or slashed or whatever you want to call it until afterward. I didn't even feel it. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug, but you know, I remember running away with my boys, Big and Little Paul, and I think Randy was there too. Yeah, Randy was there, and I was wearing a white shirt. And by the time we ran back to the car, because you just get the fuck out of Dodge, just leave, go, get away from the impending assault and battery charges. So, rule number one, as always, don't get caught. But uh, by the time I made it back to the car, half my shirt was just red. So now I have a ruined shirt, and and I figured that if I was gonna get into any more fights, I should really know what I was doing or start carrying something. And I don't want to kill anybody. Look, if I kill you, you don't learn anything, and people can grow and change, and a guy in 10 years might not be the same guy they were. You know, so I prefer to break a nose or an eye socket as opposed to just stab you to death. Because if I stab you, you don't learn anything. I'm a teacher, but and so I moved out when I was 18 or 19. I think I was 19, and I started going to a local MMA gym. Uh, I'll mention their name if they start paying me. But local coach, I'll say the coach's name because these two guys had a huge impact on my life. And when I went for the first time to an MMA gym, I was about 230. I'm 6'4". I was about 230 pounds coming out of high school. And the first day I went, I just got the shit kicked out of me. It was jujitsu. I got choked out 4 times in 4 minutes by a middle-aged woman named Leanne. I'll say her name because I respect the fuck out of that woman. Uh, I hope she's doing all right. I haven't seen her in forever. But yeah, I got choked the fuck out. She's not a physical specimen. She's 5'6", maybe 125, 130 pounds, and she choked my big ass out 4 times in 4 minutes. And I just remember being like, oh, I didn't know shit because I was a good street fighter. I'm 6'4", I was 230, I'm athletic, quick, but I didn't know shit. As soon as I started learning, I'm like, oh, this is incredible. And I wanted to learn as much as I could, even at the things I was bad at. Like I legitimately know that I'm terrible at wrestling. Um, I have like I mentioned before, I fall on ice. I don't have great balance, but I try and work it out. I try and do the best I can with it. Um, but I worked wrestling, and then I started striking, doing Muay Thai and kickboxing, and over time it evolved. I moved out, so I kept going for as long as I could. Uh, it was probably about 3 years. I was training like 3 days a week, and did a Naga tournament. I got sandbagged in a grappling tournament before. Uh, so I signed up, right? I cut all the weight. I was walking around about 170. I'm around 180 now. Uh, but I was about 170, 175. Cut 13 pounds, go to make 160, which I shouldn't have. Whatever. 13 pounds. People cut more than that to make that weight class, and I know it. But uh, I cut the weight, and I get my draw, and I lose. I do okay. I do real well, keep my guard. I actually swept him, and then he swept me back. It was a good little match. He got me via arm bar that I didn't tap to until I heard four pops. Just all right, I gotta get. If I'd stayed any longer, I'd get that shit broken. Tap. It's good for you. You learn shit when you tap. Because I'm a hell of a lot harder to arm bar now than I was then. But I started striking too, and I would spar with a few pros, pro MMA fighters, and then later on I would go to another boxing gym. I'd go to a boxing gym, and I sparred with some, local level, not great guys, not like names, but I was lucky enough to grapple a top 10 UFC light heavyweight, which was one of the more interesting moments of my life because he got me in a submission that only exists in like WWE. Like, do you remember Chris Benoit for something aside from murder? If you do, his finishing move, I got tapped out by a top 10 UFC light heavyweight with that move. It's called the Crippler Crossface. Look it up. It looked like it was an omoplata. Like he got my. It's like they basically turn your shoulder backwards, and then this motherfucker. Like, but I'm flexible. I have flexible shoulders, and so he can't get the tap with it. So he just fucking grabs around like my forehead and just starts yanking my neck back as far as it would go. So I like tapped out, and that was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and so I moved into a new place. I got lucky. I found a real good rate on a place, but it's big. And, heat, lights, bills. Like, I couldn't afford to go anymore. I still can't afford to go. I'd love to. I miss it. I miss it every day. But, so, yeah, that's where I'm at now as far as experience. I watch a lot of fights, and I'm a sucker for technique, and I want to learn more. I watch a shitload of matches, I watch a shitload of fights, and I pick up on things quick. And my training helped with that, and the work of a few great online fight analysts. If you're not reading them as well as my shit, like I think my shit is really like some of the best writing about the fight game that's out there right now, with the sole exception of maybe Jack Slack. I love that dude's writing. He's a brilliant writer on top of being a brilliant technical analyst. He mostly does MMA though. Um, Aside from Jack Slack, I think I'm the best at this. And I want to be humble and shit, but I haven't read anybody that I think does it better than me. And I hope you think the same. Uh, anyway, that's my first, I don't know even what the fuck I'm calling this. You'll probably see it in the title description or post or some shit. Anyway, I'm a Scudo. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. I did. It was weird, but yeah, it was cool.